But we have sort of a number of programs. For example, we have a thing called Youth Mobile, which is training young people about apps, developing apps for Africa. So there's those kinds of opportunities. We have a MOOC for judges in Africa on how to understand all aspects of media, freedom of expression, and internet. When cases are coming to them, if a judge is hearing a case about an internet shutdown, at the moment they know nothing, but we are providing a MOOC. We have 3,000 people at the moment signed up for this MOOC in Africa. So just also visit the UNESCO website from time to time, and you'll see there are training opportunities. In terms of process, actually what we want to do, January to May, in many countries it's possible where there is some NRI activity, open dialogue with you about these indicators. In fact, even in Sri Lanka, we would like to come and say, can we do a pre-test in Sri Lanka, and maybe a pilot even, because we were just in Sri Lanka and we had a very good experience there. So I think that if you are going to have any internet forum next year, tell us, especially in the first part of the year, because that's when you can really influence. But even later in the year, we would love to participate. And so, it can be remotely, it can be in person.
So the person we need to recognize for communication purposes just walked in. I'm going to introduce her as the solution to this communication problem. Guy had asked me if we have a standard calendar. Anya? Yes, and we do have a rough calendar of timing because the NRIs roughly handle the schedule on a rough schedule. And Anya runs the NRI network, which is the way that we communicate with designated NRI coordinators. So she is the go-to person. That's who they go to. And I know that you will get absolutely great response. I had suggested, I just want to mention that in Nigeria, the Nigerian IGF held a 2-day pre-event for law enforcement. So in some cases, it may be appropriate for an NRI to put UNESCO into the main program. In other cases, because the program is built bottom up, it may be that it needs to be a day zero event, but that's in their hands. But it would work both ways for you, and you would still be able then to participate, perhaps as a speaker. Guys, I know we have to leave, but if Guy is in agreement, what I would suggest we do is we kind of summarize this working with Anya, because not all NRIs are here, and we put out a communication with the network, and then we plan the organized approach to follow-up. So Guy is able to help us by sending out a communique, sort of a heads up. We're establishing an informal arrangement. Here are the kinds of things we'll be talking about, because otherwise you're going to be bombarded with funding here, speaker here. So let's see if we can put together a kind of a la carte menu of activities. Everybody knows what they are, and make this a very smooth engagement. Anya, I didn't know if you wanted to just maybe express appreciation to Guy, but I want to be sure he knows you are the person to go to at the Secretariat.
Thank you, Marilyn. I actually thanked Mr. Berger at the beginning when he entered this room, first of all, for finding some time to. Colleagues were also present at the NRI's virtual meetings, gave an excellent presentation, and I think there was a follow-up collaboration after between the colleagues and the NRIs. So thank you very much once again for coming. I think it was very useful, and we will continue our communication. Gladly, the Secretariat is always there to support and facilitate the communication with the NRIs. But the good thing is that the colleagues are here, so also direct contacts can be established. Thank you.
So thank you so much. I think this is really productive and constructive. And there is one more UNESCO event tomorrow. If anybody wants to go to it, you can hear on big data and artificial intelligence. Could be interesting. I'm sure you'll find. I'll leave some of these. But please, I think together, let's build this elephant.
Wonderful.
Thank you. And in reference to Italy, it should be a cultural symbol of an elephant as well.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming back to this room to continue the session that is organized by the 97 national, regional, sub-regional, and youth IGF initiatives. In case you haven't been with us during the first segment that ended up at 1 o'clock, we have prepared some kind of a summary for you in a form of key messages that were delivered by the NRIs that were speaking during the first segment. And I would like to thank our rapporteur, Mr. Dustin Phillip from IconWiki and IGF USA for doing this hard work. And I'm just going to kindly ask Dustin to quickly read us these general messages that were sent during the first segment over the wider community by the participating NRIs.
Great, thank you, Anya. My name is Dustin Phillips, for the record. And so there were several key themes that emerged during the first part of this session. One of the most prominent themes that rose was the broad consensus that online rights are the same as offline rights. And then we also went on to talk about the fact that access and connectivity is a prerequisite to exercising these rights in the digital world. But also, beyond that, that access alone is not enough, that there's an additional need for capacity development, such as increasing digital literacy and raising awareness about protecting certain rights online. And the rapid development of certain new technologies online can have an impact and effect on our digital rights. And the last thing that was a common theme among all of the, not all of the NRIs, but a lot of them, was that the approach to the matters pertaining to these online rights needs to be inclusive of all perspectives, especially including the vulnerable communities.
Thank you very much, Dustin. I know that you didn't have an easy task given the complexity of issues and inputs that were shared during the first segment. But now, building on what Dustin summarized for us and what we heard during the first segment, I think we have identified a lot of issues, a lot of problems. Some of those problems, issues, and priorities in terms of what needs to be resolved are different across countries and regions. And with that, my question then, first of all, for the NRIs panel would be, what would be then the effective approach to find solutions to these problems, and how can we improve the overall internet governance arena pertaining to our countries and regions, and with that improve the conditions globally? Can the multi-stakeholder approach maybe be an effective approach in advancing the overall internet governance conditions? I would kindly ask you to maybe limit your interventions, if possible, to 1 minute. And with this, maybe to start with, I know it's challenging, but let's see whether Colombian IGF will do it.
Yes, we do believe really that working in a multi-stakeholder model is a thing that we need to pursue and we need to get. But at the same time, it represents a huge challenge. How can we build a multi-stakeholder model with very weak institutions in every one of the models, in every one of the stakeholders? So very weak representation from companies, very weak representation from academy, weak representation from the governmental side, and of course from the business side too. So this is the big challenge we have to deal with in order to work in a multi-stakeholder model, which we really believe is the model we need to work on this topic of internet governance.
Thank you very much to the Colombian IGF. Now moving to Brazilian IGF to see what's the status of the multi-stakeholder approach in that country. Flavio.
Thank you, Anya. So as many of you know, Brazil has been following the multi-stakeholder model for internet governance for more than 2 decades now. While the Brazilian IGF, which is also a multi-stakeholder event, does not propose and approve recommendations directly, it serves as a policy forum that yields debates that generate important inputs for CGI in its advisory and executive role, and for all actors of the Brazilian internet ecosystem. Taking an example, the CGI Decalogue, featuring principles for the use and development of the internet, was the result of a multi-stakeholder debate inside the committee, and one of the important bases for the widely known Marco Civil, the Brazilian Bill of Rights for the Internet. And among those rights, as I already mentioned before, you have freedom of speech, privacy, data protection, the need of a court order to remove contents from websites, net neutrality, and others. So the Marco Civil was the result of a very wide public consultation process with strong involvement from all stakeholder groups along 2 years of intense debate. And the legitimacy of that framework, and thus the legitimacy of the principles and rights it assures, has been strongly reinforced by the multi-stakeholder nature of the debates, both inside CGI, leading to its decalogue of principles, and outside CGI with the whole society.
Thank you very much, Flavio. I think that this is very important to underline, that the legislation itself, when it comes about the internet as a platform, requires, first of all of us to be involved there, not just traditionally the governments. Let us see maybe from Eurodic, what are the perspectives?
Thank you. This is Elisabeth Schaumann on behalf of Eurodic. At this point in time, what European internet governance processes can do is capacity building with policymakers and regulators. Decision making remains very EU and nation state centric. While in new issues like IoT security, Europe has not been proactively regulating yet, but there's a certain pressure to do so in the future. But European countries mostly have high standards of human rights protection by legislation, so Europe is in a good position to translate those standards into digital practice and to protect human rights across different European jurisdictions. In this, it would definitely be desirable to involve expertise of multi-stakeholder processes.
Thank you very much. We do have from Spanish IGF inputs, and I'm just going to give priority as I know colleagues need to leave very soon.
So thank you, Anya. So we don't know if the challenges that we have discussed about digital rights can be effectively addressed through the multi-stakeholder model, but certainly if there is a model that can potentially solve these challenges, that's a multi-stakeholder model. So both in the local and global spheres. So I would like to share with you very briefly some details about several multi-stakeholder initiatives approaching digital rights that had been carried out in Spain in 2017. So besides the regular meeting of the IGF Spain that I already said, it was a focus on digital rights this year. So the government has created 2 multi-stakeholder working groups in charge of engaging a wider community and producing outcomes. So the first group is on digital rights, aimed at elaborating a white book on fundamental rights on the internet, while the second group is on the ethics and use of algorithms in the data economy, which has been mandated to produce a code of conduct for the public sector and a guide for good practices for the private sector. So we hope these multi-stakeholder initiatives can shed light to the debate at a local level and enable further cooperation to find a common ground at the international level. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the colleagues from the Spanish IGF for these sharing these good practices from their respective communities. Moving maybe now to the Italian IGF to see what is the status of the multi-stakeholder approach to these complex issues there.
Thank you. So every one of us understand that the multi-stakeholder is a key for the management of the internet, especially even in the countries. There are different models where someone wants to share with the government, and the government has to accept the decisions in these committees. Another is that the government listened before mandatory the opinions of the other constituencies, and then they decide. So we tried in Italy, and it is now 3rd year that we discuss this, making pressure on the government. This year, we think to have a result that is positive, maybe more even of the previous 2 years. But then the real point is that we are in a electoral campaign and things like that, so it's not so easy. But we have to insist, and we have good signals in order to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefano, for bringing these remarks on behalf of the Italian IGF. I think what you said is very important. That goes in line with the fact that the IGF is not a decision-making forum, but it's a discussion forum. But nevertheless, the ones that are making decisions are here, and they're listening to everyone. And I think there is the biggest value when it comes about the IGFs, regardless on the level that they're organized. I think, Marilyn, do you have? I do have from Marilyn a remark. So yes, from the IGF USA, maybe to hear perspectives on this question.
Yeah, one of our challenges was getting people to participate beyond what they're used to thinking as their Washington representatives, taking care of this problem. We were very fortunate that Larry Strickling, who was quite involved in this, has really liked the multi-stakeholder model and implemented it in the U.S. government beyond just internet governance. So he kind of used the multi-stakeholder model to lower the formality. People tended to think that engaging with your government, you needed a lawyer. And you needed to always comment in a very legal, regulatory fashion. So lowering the formality has really allowed a lot more people to feel like they can be engaged in the process. And I think that's been very helpful for us, not only in the internet governance portion of our government, but we're starting to see it evolve in other areas of the U.S. government.
Thank you very much to the colleagues from the IGF USA. Maybe now to move, just following these remarks, to the Portugal IGF, because I know you have a very good multi-stakeholder process established within your respective community.
Thank you very much. Well, actually, you are right. So I'm not the coordinator. I'm a part of the multi-stakeholder community that prepares the national initiative of the IGF in Portugal. And because of that, I'm not going to talk, but I'm going to read, because I want to be really certain that all my colleagues from the other fields they feel comfortable with what are the Lisbon messages that come up from our national initiative that was held on the 29th of September. So on this, so I'm, as far as I'm understanding, you are on the 5th question.
So we opened this second segment with discussing the multi-stakeholder approach, but of course you have all the flexibility to address all other items, given just the complexity of the topic.
Had very good discussions, and as a result, we put in our messages that the contribution of the different stakeholders were vital to further enrich the content and the amplitude of the ongoing discussion, its thematics and problematics, in a process allowing different perspectives to complement each other, with the purpose of having a better and broader comprehension of our reality. This, in turn, empowers us to better define the pathways to improve inclusion and digital competencies, to protect individual data, fundamental rights, the right to be forgotten, and to face up the challenges tied to issues like cybercrime, cyber surveillance, and cybersecurity. So all these different perspectives, actors, and stakeholders, they result in an interdisciplinary mosaic where we can recognize the main internet scenarios for today and tomorrow, but also, and perhaps most importantly, its different uses, its advantages, and the challenge it entails. So we have this initiative now in Portugal. It is called Cont 2030. It's an initiative on digital competencies, but it entails everything. Even the 5th pillar is about research with computer, robotics, etc. And why I'm mentioning this? Because we are prepared to better understand the future, because we don't know what the technology will lead us in the morning of tomorrow. So before it was like day to day we would change. Now it's from the morning to the afternoon. Thank you.
Anna, thank you very much for, first of all, emphasizing how the new digital technologies are affecting our digital rights, and then how the multi-stakeholder approach is needed in that sense to address the issues that are emerging. Maybe now to move just next to Anna to Afghanistan IGF. And Omar, see what are the perspectives that you are bringing from your respective community?
Thank you, Anya. As I mentioned before, connectivity and the cost of bandwidth being one of the greatest challenges in Afghanistan, we also face a problem about not having sufficient local contents and local technologies. Digital literacy has been a challenge in the country with that gender divide, policy and regulatory environment, taxation, government official having business interests, so that creates like sort of an issue for the businesses. And fiber optic, although it's through the open access policy been open to private investment, but still the fee are really expensive, really high, and the local businesses are not able to, invest in the fiber optic. Public-private partnership has been an issue in Afghanistan, especially with the organizations that are generating revenue. There is a complex cashback system in Afghanistan. All the cash received by a certain government agency would go to a Ministry of Finance fund, and then it will come back not to that specific entity within a government body, but it will be, it will come as a whole, for the whole ministry. So that particular agency will not receive it back, and that makes it really difficult for the private-public partnership. Because if you're partnering with a specific agency, there should be like a revenue sharing model. Like if we take AFGNEC as an example, that takes care of the .AF. It's a problem. But recently, Afghanistan adopted a public-private partnership policy, which will make it easier for us to, work on that front. But with that, there are a couple of programs that we're working on. One is called Tech Literacy, which is a digital literacy campaign, and the target is to provide digital literacy across Afghan schools, throughout Afghanistan in all 34 provinces. And there are about 200 topics that would be taught through the digital literacy program. And this has been with the Ministry of Education. USAID has been, partnering with us on that. There is a big program called Promote. That's the biggest U.S. government-funded program in the world. They've got $250 million for that, and the purpose is to, empower the Afghan women, and they have been part of this program. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the colleagues from the Afghanistan IGF. I find it always interesting that the multi-stakeholder approach doesn't only reflect on bringing the substance to the discussion forum, but it actually reflects the whole facilitation of the process, because somebody needs to implement the whole process and invest its time and resources. And thank you very much, Omar, also for pointing this out. Maybe now to move to Argentina IGF. Carolina, can you please share the inputs on behalf of your initiative?
Thank you, Anja. So in Argentina, we have already underwent the second national IGF experience, and access and human rights are, of course, part of the core aspects of the discussions that we take into consideration. I would just stressing on the, owing to the little amount of time we have, and the question about how does multi-stakeholder processes help in raising awareness and developing these human rights that in many parts of civil society in Argentina, access to technology, and the current government is perceiving this increasingly as a vital component of its national policy. We are perceiving that as the mechanism of having just one initiative in a yearly event is not enough as a multi-stakeholder process as such. So the idea of this IGF Argentina is to aim for a 2018 where the multi-stakeholder work can be visualized, illustrated in an intersessional work along the year, where the national IGF is only one more of the activities that it is currently undertaking. And we see that this is the only way forward to make this a valuable space in terms of contributing towards these key priorities that underlie the tensions between technology, human rights, the role of the internet in the economy, and the promotion of innovation and access to technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carolina, for being concise on your very important remarks. Makan, sitting next to you, is for years involved in facilitation of the multi-stakeholder process throughout the African region. Can you please just share very quickly and concisely, if possible, inputs from your perspective?
My name is Makan Faye, Secretary of the African IGF. The 6th African IGF was held in Egypt under the theme Enabling an Inclusive Digital Transformation of Africa. It was preceded by the African School on Internet Governance, which is a part of the African IGF process. The one key element was the adoption of the charter governing the activities of the African IGF, which is based on a very multi-stakeholder process. You can retain the following in relation to your question. Relaxation of regulation to allow competition and reduce cost of services and products to consumers, affordability of connecting devices, a secured ICT infrastructure with open data policy for research, capacity building, easy access to resources and application of appropriate technologies to encourage innovation, especially for youth, availability of space to bring all stakeholders together to share ideas and best practices and make each stakeholder understand and play its role. In fact, the multi-stakeholder model is the only viable solution to overcome the many problems related to our rights in the digital world. If you want to have more information, please, you are invited to the African IGF Open Forum to be held from 5:20 to 6:20 in room 23E. Thank you.
Makan, thank you very much, and we're looking forward to that open forum tomorrow. I hope that in 6 minutes after we exhaust all this, today, it's today. Okay, sorry, I almost, okay, thank you. I hope that in 6 minutes after we exhaust all these interventions, we can maybe open the floor for other colleagues to engage with you in the discussion. So maybe just if we could respect the timing of 1 minute, and maybe to start with Polish IGF.
Joanna Malczewska, once more for the Polish IGF. I try to be brief. We are fortunately observe a growing of IGF community in Poland still, although there are some fluctuations depending on the topics that are current to the internet themes and a portfolio that's being discussed nationally and within the European Union. What we are trying to do as far as awareness raising is concerned, we try to reach to the opinion leaders and other well-formed communities that are working around the internet things. We did attract a lot of interest from the skills initiative in Poland and had a few successful sessions during the IGF on this topic. And we reach out to other neighboring countries that do not have the national IGF. We've had a session organized by our Hungarian colleagues. We had some speakers and moderators from Czech Republic, and it proved successful. It interested attention and spectators from Poland in Warsaw. What we lack really is the more attention from SMEs, small and medium enterprises. We have big companies, we have civil society, academia, but we do not have small entrepreneurs present at our IGF. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the colleagues from Polish IGF. Croatian IGF, any similarities to what we heard?
I would say that there are similarities. I'll start with the identified problems we had in previous interventions. So as a solution for lack of digital competency that's identified in Croatia, we perceive that introducing digital literacy and media literacy programs in formal and informal education would be important to engage more citizens in active participation in e-citizen program and online accessible services, as well as to enhance the cooperation between citizens and the government in all government entities. And currently in Croatia is taking place the educational curriculum reform, which that recognized those identified shortcomings, and we are all hope that it will mitigate them. Also, this lack of digital competencies is recognized by my affiliated organization, Croatian Academic and Research Network, which started the huge e-schools project that aims to make school digitally competent and mature, and we hope it will bring some positive impacts. Okay.
Just on time. Thank you so much, Natasha, and to the colleagues from Croatian IGF. Moving now to the Netherlands IGF to hear about the multi-stakeholder approach there.
Thank you. Thank you again. It's Lisa Vermeer from the Netherlands. The Dutch IGF has a very strong multi-stakeholder engagement in the Netherlands. The platform engages various groups from all society, also young people. They're very engaged. I would like to stress especially the participation of government inside the IGF. Me, myself, I'm from the Government of Foreign Affairs, but also officials from Economic Affairs and from Security and Justice are involved in the IGF, which represents a very broad amount of knowledge on policy in various fields. I think this is a very strong aspect of the Dutch approach. Well, next to the multilateral fora that we are engaged in by nature as governments, we also always stress the importance of the multi-stakeholder wherever we act internationally, and we spread the message that we advance a free, open, and secure internet all over the world. For example, fora where we are active are the Forum on Internet Freedom in Africa, but also the Global Conference on Cyberspace in India, and the IGF, of course. It goes without saying. I see that the time is short, so I just wanted to say that I want to highlight two other fora that we initiated from the Netherlands that are by nature multi-stakeholder. Those are the Global Forum for Cyber Expertise, where all stakeholders work together on cybersecurity, capacity building, and we cherish the Freedom Online Coalition, which is a 30-government coalition on internet freedom and its advisory network that really is there. It will be launched today for the participation of non-state stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being on time. And I think you mentioned a lot of similar views that colleagues mentioned, but one very, very important, which is the role of youth in the whole multi-stakeholder process. And with that, I would just kindly ask from direct hand then Alison from the Youth Like IGF to share the perspectives from your IGF.
Yes, for us, the multi-stakeholder model is currently the best and the most effective model to dealing with the internet and its particularities. We built our initiative by having the model as a base. We had an open election to choose the coordinator. Our fellows were chosen in a multi-stakeholder process, and our speakers were selected based in a multi-stakeholder model. So we believe that in this model, directly or indirectly, everyone has the opportunity to participate, from the larger companies and government to the end user of the internet. So we believe support and use this model.
Thank you very much, Alison. These are very valuable remarks. Moving to Asia Pacific IGF, Yanis, can you just briefly tell us what is the regional perspective there?
Thanks, Anya. So this is Yanis Lee from APR IGF. So I guess many of the NRIs colleagues here, we all agree and acknowledge the importance of ensuring multi-stakeholder models, so which our APR IGF is also run with a multi-stakeholder steering group since our establishment, actually. But I want to reiterate and echo some of the colleagues also mentioned about the importance of capacity building. So it's not just about opening the door for the people to come, but we have to make sure that we help them and prepare them to make some meaningful participation. And this was actually specifically raised by some youth in our town hall sections during our Bangkok meeting, and also recognize this concern. So therefore, we have been expanding our fellowship programs in APR IGF, which we're very proud to say that we have been supporting like 50 fellows from around the region to come to Bangkok meeting. And we also think that it is very important to encourage new faces to come to the IGF meetings, and also like to equip them with the understanding on how they can participate and exercise their rights here. And also out of IGF, of course. So that's why when we consider capacity building, I think it is very important to ensure the materials or courses that we gave them is we consider the diversity of language and culture, so as well as the background knowledge and skills of the participants. So that they can like fully understand the issues. And lastly, I want to say, so we feel that by creating a network of fellows or from around the region, it would help to enhance their capacity with these peer support and to share the information and also encourage them to further continue their participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yanis. Babu, in Nepal IGF, there is a very good multi-stakeholder process established in this year and well documented, I would say. What is the situation currently now there?
Though it was for the first time, then it was very multi-stakeholder, and all the 5 stakeholders mentioned in IGF principle, all of them were included in the MSG, and all they equally participated. And interestingly, government official, Director General of Department of IT, at his individual capacity, not at the ex officio position, is the chair of MSG of Nepal IGF, and I'm representing from civil society and as a vice chair, and we have another vice chair from business community as well. So it was very inclusive multi-stakeholder model. And interestingly, this first event was above 10,000 USD budget, but it was almost like crowdsourcing funded, like organizations, they supported 100 USD, 200 USD, and around 50 organizations were there in the board, and then they contributed in that thing. While conducting IGF activities, sessions as well, it was very interesting, and the most thing is that there was one session on disability and IGF issues, and then that was very good discussion and appreciated by the stakeholder, and I recommend all the NRIs to more focus on those disabilities and excluded community to bring into this IGF forum. That is very important. And one important thing that we were not able to meet was that most of the participants from the Kathmandu itself and not from the outside of the capital. So that was one of major challenge to bring them all of them in the forum and discussion in that way. So it was a nice discussion, and we hope we can bring in 2018 those who were not able to participate in the process. We will bring them as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Babu. I know it wasn't an easy journey, but you succeeded with a great outcome. Kosi, in Benin IGF, can we briefly just hear about the status of the multi-stakeholder approach?
Merci beaucoup, Anja. Au Bénin, le processus multi-acteur a été un succès à tout point de vue. Sur le point de vue de l'organisation même du bureau de l'IGF, mais également sur le point de vue de la participation aux IGF. L'IGF national, dans son cadre multiacteur, a permis par exemple de réduire le coût d'accès à Internet, a permis d'ouvrir les débats sur la gestion du point d'échange national, d'ouvrir les débats sur la gestion du point de domaine et le CCTLD du Bénin. Et toutes ces expériences ont permis au gouvernement de comprendre qu'il était utile à chaque instant de faire participer aux IGF aussi bien les représentants du ministère en charge de l'économie nationale, de l'économie numérique, mais aussi tous les autres responsables informatiques et autres qui sont dans d'autres ministères. La société civile participe de façon efficace. Le secteur privé a compris qu'autour de l'IGF, il parvient à avoir des discussions sur la qualité du service qu'ils offrent à la communauté. Et cela est régulièrement pris en charge. Et nous pensons que ce modèle doit rester pérenne. Cela nous permet d'atteindre des résultats.
Thank you very much, Kosi, for respecting the times and bringing very important inputs. I'm going to ask all the participants now in the room to prepare your remarks and notes for intervening and liaising with the colleagues. While you're preparing on any of the 5 policy questions that we discussed during the first segment and now during this second segment in regards to the digital rights, while you're preparing, I know Mary will be very quick on behalf of the West African IGF. Yes, Liana.
Thank you.
We have only 20 minutes and
Thank
I'm
you.
also a bad time manager.
Thank you. We tried in the West Africa to have multi-stakeholder. Our secretariat is at the Regional Economic Commission, but we reached out to other stakeholders, and it was multi-stakeholder in Benin hosted us. But we want to say by 2018, we're trying to bring the French-speaking West Africans to the Internet Governance, School of Internet Governance. So we are hoping to hold that in 2018. School of Internet Governance, specifically targeting our Francophone participants that have not been enjoying the School of Internet Governance as we run it in Africa. Thank you. And APC is willing to support us and other people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. Let us just quickly go to Liana from Armenian IGF to hear perspectives. I know we have Turkish Youth IGF, and I think Italian IGF, Kenyan IGF. We will finish definitely here and then give the floor to you.
Thank you, Anya, for giving me the floor. I'm Liana Galstian from Armenia IGF. We have a multi-stakeholder Internet Governance Council in Armenia, and all changes and emerging Internet governance-related issues are being discussed within this group. And even the discussions of the annual IGF in the form of messages go through this council and find their place in the roadmap of action plans for the coming years. So we affirm that a multi-stakeholder model can be an effective approach for making changes and improvements. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liana. Sonia, on behalf of Youth IGF Turkey.
This is Susonia Herring on behalf of Youth IGF Turkey. This year was the most open, transparent, bottom-up, and multi-stakeholder organization out of the 3. And the thing is, there's not much awareness about multi-stakeholder approaches among the youth, but once explained the benefits and how it works and how it fits perfectly with the governance of internet, the youth is very, very enthusiastic and willing to participate in all processes. There's a general culture of government versus civil society, but at times when this is broken, it comes with great results, such as the new legislation proposed about the deletion and anonymization of personal data in Turkey. That goes into effect in 2018, and it's almost even more progressive than the European GDPR, but of course we need to see if it will actually be enforced. And other challenges include local language content on internet governance and more awareness about it, because like I said, once there's awareness, most parties are very willing to participate, including the government.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Grace, in Kenya, how is the situation?
I must say that the trend has continued because there has always been multi-stakeholder participation, but in this year we saw the participation of the youth determining what topics they would want to listen to, and also in terms of funding. We actually had the businesses putting in money, we had government putting in money, we had traditional donors putting in money, and then we had organizations like the bloggers giving their time to just generating content. So it was multi-stakeholder all the way, and we felt that there were more voices this time, and we hope that even in 2018 we will bring in more voices.
Thank you very much, Grace, and on behalf of the Kenyan IGF, we will conclude this segment with brief remarks from the Italian IGF on the process.
Stefano told before, we reached an important result during the Italian IGF because there were a proposal has been put to in the plenary session. And this proposal of a multi-stakeholder body to be set up in Italy for addressing internet governance issues will be put in public consultation. So we will go on this issue and on the multi-stakeholder also after IGF Italia. Okay. So.
Thank you very much for referencing this. With this, I believe we have exhausted the initial remarks from the NRIs. I'm going to now kindly ask you to indicate whether you would like to intervene and either ask a question or maybe add a suggestion for this session. So I guess that will be by raising hands. Yes, we have a first question here. I'm just going to ask you to say your name at the beginning.
Okay, my name is Saliu Mansere. I'm from the Sierra Leone IGF and also West Africa IGF. What I would want to perhaps put forward is that, as UNESCO has just said about indicators, I think every IGF should have a diversity indicator, because it seems as if most IGFs are dominated by civil society. There needs to be an indicator that will say that at this IGF, so many people from civil society, so many from the law, so many from government, so that at least you know that it is multi-stakeholder, not more civil organizations, which is the case. And even here, we don't have that many youths here anyway.
Thank you very much for that question. My suggestion is that we take, first of all the questions, and then we will try to respond to all of them. So any other questions or suggestions? Yes, please.
Maud from APC. It's more of a comment, because after hearing all these testimonies, I really feel like sharing that we just launched 2 GISFET reports just on NRIs that raise a lot of the challenges that have been discussed here. One is online and the other, both are online, and one is still open for participation by NRIs that want to share like the experience of their founding and the challenges they encountered from the multi-stakeholder model to participation and others. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this. Any questions that are reflecting the substance that we heard during the first and second segment? What is the concept of digital rights? What are our issues? Do we consider access to be a right? How are digital technologies affecting our rights? Yes, Marilyn.
Thank you, Anya. Marilyn Cade speaking. I wanted to make a 30-second comment and then ask a question. One of the things that I have noted as a real uniqueness is that we have, my observation, and I, as most of you know, I know a lot about all of the NRIs, but my observation is that we have very different models where in some cases, even in Europe, the government is almost the host. And in other cases, we have models where maybe I should say the originator is civil society, and in other cases, it's already evolved very equally, and in other cases, it may be the technical community. What I've observed is there is a real challenge, and I am from the business sector, but what I've observed is there is a real challenge in all of the NRIs, and particularly those that are not located in the WEOG countries, to be able to reach businesses, and particularly outside of the telecom and internet business sectors. And I just wanted to ask a question, even if by a show of hands, of those who feel that our ability to attract businesses from healthcare, from financial services, etc., where if we're going to achieve the SDGs, we must be able to bring along more than what I think of as the supplier side of the internet, et cetera. Because I can say, I'm looking at the co-chair, we are able to get the communications companies, we're able to get the media companies, but it's difficult for us to interest banking or healthcare, et cetera. So I just think that's a common challenge that all of us face, and I guess I'd be interested, even just by a show of hands, if that engagement with business is a big challenge everywhere. I think that's very helpful, and maybe something for us in the network to be thinking about what would make it more exciting and interesting and relevant to healthcare suppliers who are delivering e-health, et cetera. So thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn, for this comment and suggestion. And I think your question was answered by the hands that were raised. Any other comments or questions for the NRI colleagues? I do have one from the NRI. I'm just looking quickly whether there is anyone from the audience. If not, then I will give a floor to Carolina.
I think that the issue just raised by Marilyn is one of the challenges we have with the branding of internet governance. And she was referring to companies that are part of the digital economy these days, or the traditional productive sectors or other sectors. And they just, maybe with the concept of they don't understand the concept of internet governance. They feel it's somehow unrelated to them. And I'm feeling this more and more, and even in the university where I work, if I say this is a course in internet governance, or if I say it's digital policy, so there is a kind of a branding with the word that I'm perceiving is challenging to overcome this next step of, in this case, businesses, but other actors that should be incorporated into the ecosystem, to put it somewhere.
Thank you very much, Carolina. I think we have an online participant. Liana is our online moderator.
Yes, Anya. Thank you. We do have around 20 online participants and one hub from Abuja. And we have a discussion and questions to the panel, and I combine them in this way. So is there a possibility of creation of a global institution that will monitor all the cases of breaking the law of digital right and to regulate and solve those cases? And this is one question. And the other one is, what is the most appropriate way to engage young people in internet governance initiatives? How to make sure that they are equally involved in the IGF discussion? Thank you, Anya.
Liana, thank you very much. Having an institution that will do the monitoring of breaking the digital rights.
Answering this first question, I think we have been in this territory, and there are a variety of opinions whether we should strive to create some centralized governance model organization to address all those issues, or we should simply continue addressing internet governance related issues in a variety of organizations, variety of forums, and coordinate these activities through specific actions like Internet Governance Forum, where we come together, exchange information. Probably following the logic of internet architecture, avoid creation of a single point of failure. One would argue that the governance model also should try to avoid create a single point of failure. Hence, my personal preference would be a variety of points where decisions should be made. And actually coming back and then thinking how idea of IGF was created, it was created exactly with the idea in mind that people who do care about internet governance and related issues should come to learn, listen, tell their story, tell their concerns, better understand situation, different aspects of the issue, and then go back to their respective constituencies or organizations and make necessary decisions based on better understanding and a fuller set of information about any given question.
Giving floor to Mr. Peter Major. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. I'm Peter Major, Vice Chair of CSCD. Just to follow up on what Yanis was telling us, there's a working group on enhanced cooperation within the Commission on Science and Technology for Development, just discussing this possible models, whether we should have a distributed arrangement as we have now, or should we have some kind of unified approach that is creating a new mechanism. As for the mechanism, it may be a mechanism of open working group, or it can be a mechanism of a new UN body. So the discussion is still going on. Just to call your attention that there has been a previous working group which carried out a study about the issues and the existing mechanisms, identifying also gaps. And this is a very valuable study, I believe, which pointed out that many of the issues, or majority of the issues, are being taken care of existing mechanisms. And of course, we have to think about how to fill the gaps. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very concrete answer. I think Julian from the Colombian IGF would like to intervene.
Sí, muchas gracias, Anja. Básicamente quisiera que evaluáramos este primer ejercicio que tuvimos este año de diversas sesiones que fueron con participación de las iniciativas nacionales y regionales, y hacer una evaluación para ver si podemos mejorar y mantener estos espacios de colaboración en donde podemos compartir nuestras experiencias en estos temas acá en el IGF, y lo veo como un mecanismo de compartir los resultados de nuestras iniciativas nacionales y buenas prácticas en este espacio global. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Julian. I actually think that currently the records and the status of the NRIs network and the produced outcomes probably speak in favor to what you said, which is very important, that the NRIs should have a good collaboration, and I think there are good grounds laid for that. Thank you very much for bringing this up. Second online question? Yes, Liana, yes. So we're taking a question from an online participant.
The second question was, what is the most appropriate way to engage young people in IG initiatives? How to make sure that they are equally involved in the IG discussion?
Thank you. Yes, the Secretariat could respond to that, but I think, Marilyn, you would like to intervene? Yes.
Marilyn Cade, IGF USA. I'm just going to make a comment about there are already, I would say, 4 models and that I could point to, and we have some of them here. At the IGF USA, we have involved youth both as advisors. They have organized their own sessions. They have been speakers on the plenary sessions. We have also involved Elon University on an ongoing basis. And I want to just reference Elon because through a multi-year continuous involvement with Elon University and then with 4 other universities, we've tried various models, and our goal is just to make sure that we're integrating youth. There are other models where youth have their own designed, and I think maybe hearing from you about those other models. But I would just say one size does not fit all, and I think that's important to bring the voice of youth actually into the overall IGF as well.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. I think we need to wrap up here, but on this question, I will just invite everyone tomorrow morning at 8:30 to join us at the meeting that is dedicated precisely to the engagement of youth into the IGF processes, with the idea to have public consultations and see how we can improve the engagement of young people. With this, I believe we have exhausted our time. I'm going to, first of all, from my side, thank you to all the NRIs, not just for this session, but thank you for working hard the whole year for this day to happen. And I'm going to especially thank Mr. Karklins for accepting this responsibility and for, of course, doing a wonderful job. And I'm giving the last remarks then to Mr. Karklins.
Thank you very much. And it was indeed my pleasure to once again visit this wonderful community who dedicate much of their time for the cause of internet in their respective countries, and kudos, and I'm very pleased to see that the community is growing. And from my side, thanks to session organizer, conceptors who put that proposal, but equally technical staff and interpreters who helped us understand each other better. And I wish you, all of you, wonderful end of the day and closing day of IGF that is tomorrow. Thank you very much.